This man stepped into another man's shoes. He knew full well what he was doing. All of us do. When we step up and protect you, we know that we could get beaten to death at any point in time over some ex that you did nasty shit to. We know that if your snot-nosed little brat wants to be a turd, we've had to live with the little shithead. And we care about them. Actually care about them. This man wasn't gonna let this boy be in a fight. Whether that boy was a victim in the situation or whether these people were seeking revenge for something that boy had done wrong is arbitrary. The fact is that this man, who is not this boy's father, stepped in, took that beating, and died, as we're expected to do. Without complaint. How can you complain when you're dead, right? Yeah, we protect our own. We protect our own. We're just not considered anyone else's own. Yeah, we protect kids that are not ours. We protect women that are not ours. These aren't our people. You don't see them fighting our battles. You don't see them taking our lumps. No, we are expected to take theirs, and we're expected to take ours. We're expected to do so without complaint. We are expected to lay down and die to make you happy. We are expected to give up our lives so you can have pretty things, nice things, warm things in the winter, and cool things in the summer. We're told about this equality the feminists want to show. They want to show us this equality. Tell us how horrible men are because of rapes. Meanwhile, what percentage of men are rapists, and what percentage of men do you pretend are rapists? Statistics have shown that women commit more sex crimes against men than the other way around. How is that even possible? Well, many of the things that are considered sex crimes aren't considered sex crimes if a woman does them. How horrible is that? Or we want to use the statistics of how many men are locked up in prison for sexual assault and how many women are locked up for sexual assault. We don't want to pay any attention to the fact that a woman's average sentence is 8 months. 8 months. What's a man's average sentence? If he actually has sex with her, 40 years. A woman who gets busted red-handed having sex with a student, 8 months. We even get to see how many women are getting on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and bragging about doing these things to men. We've gotten to see these women by the hundreds, claiming that the man that was done with them decided that he was finished with her BS. So she'd go run around to his friends and family saying that he's a homosexual, saying he wears women's clothing, saying he's into little boys, and doing the same thing on the internet, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. And 2 weeks later, whining and pining and crying because he won't take her back. Why do we teach girls to fucking do that? Why don't you scream when there's an actual problem? Holy fuck. It's stressful. You don't try to understand the stresses that men are put under. We're always under constant restraint. We're expected to protect you, but we're expected to do it how you want, when you want, and only when you want. We're expected to read your minds about when you want that. We're expected to do as you want, when you want it, right when you want it. For us, it's, oh, I got this going on, I got that going on, oh, I'm busy drinking with my friends this weekend, oh, I got kids. We got this here feller, Mr. Christopher Wright. Apparently he was Mr. Wright. Apparently he was the right man at the right time to save a life, and he did so. He did so effectively. That's the death I can look forward to out here on the streets. The kids come first. Always. My niece Destiny comes first. My niece Trinity comes first. Zyler comes first. Brianna Ingersoll's kids come first. The children of Hardin, Montana come first. Children first. A lot of women were able to manipulate me by going, oh, situation with Candace here in Tillamook. Despite that situation, I still made sure that her son was fed. Despite her addictions, I still made sure her son was fed. You get to see how I was willing to go to jail to make sure that Amy, Clean, and Kingery's kids were safe. And I did go to jail to make sure they were safe. And the cops there did horrible things. So did the hospitals, as they always do once you've had your name slandered the way that mine was. And none of you stopped to try, even in the least bit, to understand the abuse that I will have to endure for the rest of my life because of what Natalie Bollinger did. Because of what Waylon Lolatai did. Because of what Clearview Behavioral Health did. Across multiple jurisdictions, might I add, multiple states. And all they had to do was slander my name, cut me off from resources, cut me off from friends, cut me off from family, and pretend that I was making everything up. Fuck this goddamn country and everyone in it. Fuck every one of you who want to bitch at us that every goddamn thing that we do is some horrible, hateful thing against women. Get off your ass and do it yourself. Protect your own fucking kids. Stop abusing the phone and get off your fat, lazy fucking ass! It's not men's fault that you're a fucking coward. It's not men's fault that you can't wipe your own ass, change your own fucking tire. It's not men's fault that you never tried to learn those goddamn things. Who wouldn't want to know how to change a fucking tire on their goddamn vehicle? Women in this country are dependent upon men. They are dependent upon men because we have taught them how to manipulate, not how to work for a limp cook to save their lives. No gender bias there whatsoever. Most of the women that I know that are my age or younger cannot cook. I don't mean can't cook a good meal. I mean, you try to get them to cook a meal just for themselves. Oh, I don't know how. I'll burn it. Please. It would be okay for women to bitch about how they're expected to cook if we were expecting them to cook. It would be okay for them to bitch about us expecting them to cook for us if they were cooking for us. But if they're not even cooking for themselves, that is not a legitimate goddamn beef. I'm not saying that women are incapable of being engineers. There are female engineers. There are female mechanics. Rod carriers and bricklayers who are women. You're right, women sort of don't need men. Completely fix that. As long as women are trained in how to in reality, children who are abandoned by their mothers, when these mothers realize that it's not a party being a mother, that you do have to change shitty diapers, that baby does cry. There's many women who told me before they got pregnant, told me, oh, I know all that stuff, I know all that stuff, I know all that stuff. I'm never going to complain. I'm going to be a good mom. I babysat enough kids to know. And then they had kids. And those things they swore they'd never bitch about. Shut up and listening to her. Bitching about her back hurts. No matter how much you had to do today at work. No matter how many 70-pound bundles of shingles you had to carry up that fucking ladder. No matter how many 50-pound bags of Quikrete you had to huck into whatever fucking bundle of a hellhole you had to get it to. Pounds of bricklayer's mud in your fucking bucket. Pallets of bricks that are up to 400 pounds. 400 pounds. Luckily, you got a dolly to move it with, but if you don't have the dolly to move it with, you gotta clip them bands and you gotta stack them up. Gives you lots of extra strength in your hands. Your first day of doing that, it hurts like a son of a bitch. When you've had to literally wide. Stacking them, your hands are gonna hurt. They're gonna cramp up. But you're expected to power through it. I've stacked a lot of bricks. Only spent one day as a hod carrier, but I've stacked a lot of bricks. See, the trick to it is to keep on out, because your body's not used to it. But once your body is used to it, it's just like any other thing. The more you practice with a hammer, the better you'll be with a hammer. The more you practice with a calculator, see that practice in being Susie Homemaker doesn't really translate to the real world. All right, so you've got your doll that pees itself now. Woohoo! It's more realistic because your doll pees itself. But in reality, is that all there is to it? You can put your pees herself baby in the corner and forget about her for years and years and pull her out. It's nostalgia. You can't do that with a real baby. You pull a baby out after forgetting about it for years and years and years. You could go into fucking prison. Holy shit. You try feeding your child plastic. You go into fucking prison, and that's what's going to happen. Some things don't translate to the real world. But what does always translate in the real world is our social expectations. The social expectations of men are the same worldwide and going back beyond written history. All throughout written history, this thing called chivalry is something that, even though it wasn't outlined until the last 1,000 years, well, the last 2,000, I suppose, those concepts and beliefs have gone back to the beginning of written language. And beyond that, in the form of oral traditions that led to written language. And that includes the men do the fighting, the men do the dying, the men do the protecting. The men shut up and they do their jobs as men. The women and the children are cold. You provide them with lodging. They're wet, you provide them with a roof. You provide them with a place to put their fire. Who's to say that cave women didn't take part in the gathering of those rocks, the gathering of those materials? We're supposed to protect frightful things. We get to see in our own lives how the most fruitless use of our funds is pretty things that women in our lives want, or things that women in our lives expect for free. Women who will not protect us if we are harmed. Women who have learned that if they don't get what they want right when they want it, they can just pretend that you're homosexual, pretend that you're into children, that you wear women's clothing. We get to see how many women have the LGBT flag up right now because it's popular. After accusing one of their exes of being a homosexual. Isn't it always how it is? A man says no, and you body shame him. You say he has a tiny penis, or he can't get it up, or he needs Viagra. Or he doesn't have a penis, he's just got 3 grapes down there. I tell people I got 3 grapes down there, and only 2 grapes when it's cold. I have no children of my own, and just like this feller here who ended up dead. Well, I protect a lot of children who are not my own. But also the question should be asked, where was the parent? Where was the real parent? Well, we're expected as men to step into those roles so that a woman can free up more time to do what she needs to do. Is she ever going to listen to the things that we put aside to help her? Because she apparently was incapable of doing it herself, and most of the time it's not that she's incapable of doing it herself. In many of these cases, it's that she wants to free up social time for her. You have no social time. You have no money for socializing because you're constantly paying for things that are not your responsibility, but they are. It is your responsibility socially, because while we have all of these feminists who want to complain that everything that we do is horrible mansplaining bullshit. It's horrible that we hold doors open for people. I see men hold doors open for both men and women. When I hold a door open for a man, he's more expected for her. For her, it's expected. One woman who, well, she ended up taking her life, but she was talking about the biggest challenge for her when she transitioned from being a woman to being a man. Even though she had a good, hearty group of lesbians that were supportive of her becoming a man and had been her good friends, lifelong pals. When she became a man, they treated her a lot differently. But also, she said that she remembered on the first day when she was walking to a store, and as a woman, people would have opened the door for her. So she had a man who was in front of her who opened the door, and she expected this man was going to hold the door open for him now. But now she was treated like a him. And the guy just let the door close behind him, and she walked right into it. That was her wake-up call, that being a man was not that fucking nice. It wasn't this pearly gates, smiles and ribbons, key to the city bullshit that we want to sell to every girl. That, you know what, it's okay for you to do horrible things to a man because he's going to get free stuff anyway. He's a man. Men control everything. Men control everything. But then you teach your girls how to control men. And then you want to push on that ancient tradition of we're supposed to protect you and children. Meanwhile, you hide behind those children even. That is not a motherly instinct, is it? Not the motherly instinct that we've been taught. A lot of women want to compare us to animals. And say that it's inherently male to do a certain thing. Whereas if you pick a different species of animal, you get to see the female of the species doing that quote-unquote despicable male behavior. If we hold a door open for you, it's toxic masculinity. If we don't hold the door open for you, then we're being rude. Well, is it rude when you don't hold the door open for us? You have an expectation. Toxic masculinity, right? Literally everything that a man does, he's either a horrible alpha male, who's out to dominate you physically and beat you into submission, or he's a beta male who's out to slyly, narcissistically S&M you to death. There's a higher percentage of women in this country who are sexual predators than men. There's also a higher percentage of female teachers having students than men. 16 women this year, female educators, already arrested for having sex with students. Having sex with them. We've had 4 male predators arrested this year. Well advertised. Only one of them. I had to look this up. I thought that 3 of them, for surely, the way that the media had painted it, their headlines, I thought for surely that 3 of these men had actually had sex with their students. Only one. I don't know what's happened with his case. I haven't kept up on it. Maybe he's been convicted, maybe he hasn't. Maybe there was evidence, maybe it's just allegations. Maybe he did it, maybe she's pissed off she got an F in PE. Who knows? But women across this country are loudly and proudly demonstrating that they are abusing that situation. Abusing the fact that they're women to get free things. Abusing social expectations of men to justify taking advantage of men, and then blaming men for being taken advantage of, and playing victim after taking advantage of a man, and pretending. And sadly, every woman in this country has been taught to do that. Thank goodness for men like Christopher Wright, who is willing to give up his life for another person. No matter what, men are blamed for everything, aren't we? The woman's